Parang sa Loob Cebu, may buntag Pinoy. Cons?
Yes, karong buntaga, doon na tayo bisita, pero murag mausab ni ato ang mga pinulungan ron kay di ni kasabot og binisayan. So ato ani siyang para sa atong guests, and I think a lot of our viewers will be very interested. I for one am interested with what he's about to show us. So we have with us this morning on our show the clinic director and resident chiropractor of Form and Function Corrective Chiropractic. Please welcome Dr. Scott Jahn. Morning.
Hi, how are you?
What brings you here, and what is that you're bringing today?
So this is my little friend here. This is your spine. Right?
Wow.
Your spinal column, to be exact. And it is kind of the principle of what chiropractic is all about.
Can you explain first to us what is chiropractic?
Sure. So in essence, chiropractic is the science, philosophy, and art that the human body is think of it like a teaspoon of the ocean, right? So if the ocean is God, the intelligence of God, we, made in God's image, are the teaspoon of that, right? So we have an intelligence within us. And that intelligence allows us to heal and allows us to function. That intelligence needs no help, but it needs no interference. So when our spine is configured properly, the way it was designed, there are some beautiful curves in it to protect it. Now, over time, these curves will disappear and the neck will start to move forward, which we can see in a posture exam. And then we'll start to get interference to the central communication system, which is the nervous system. And then the body will start to break down. So chiropractic removes that interference and allows God's intelligence to flow through the body and allows the body to heal naturally the way it's supposed to.
There are a lot of videos and content that we see on TikTok, on social media, where there are a lot of bone doctors, people cracking stuff. Is that also what you do?
So there's a very big distinction between bone doctors and cracking, like what a physical therapist or maybe a trainer or a coach would do, and what a chiropractor does. We say what we do is called an adjustment, which is very different than a manipulation. A manipulation is basically someone who comes in and just gives a general kind of twerking or twisting, so you hear some cracking noise. It improves mobilization. What we do is we are very specific, right? We take x-rays so we can see which bones are out of place, we can see how they're out of place, and then we target a specific bone, and we want to move it in a specific place, in a specific vector, with a specific torque, to put it back the way it's supposed to be, like a puzzle piece, right? You wouldn't be able to fit in a puzzle piece just by jamming it any old way. You want to be specific in how you put it back,
so
and that's the difference.
Just because it makes a very good sound doesn't mean that it's actually good for you, right?
No, it can actually be detrimental, and the reason why is if you think of the idea that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Now, if you have what's called a subluxation, which is a bone that's moved out of its proper position, it tends to be stuck in that position. Now, if you try to just mobilize and just kind of create a crack, typically the bone above or the bone below will crack first. And doing that over time causes hypermobilization, which will increase the likelihood of degeneration or arthritis.
Okay, I want to go back to Form and Function Corrective Chiropractic. How does it differ from what I said earlier, common perceptions or sometimes misconceptions even of chiropractic care?
Well, the first misconception is that we can judge our health on how we look and how we feel. I go to the gym, I take some vitamins, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with me, right? That's the biggest misconception with our health, because if we take, for example, the most common cause of death in the world, and that's heart disease. Heart disease is known as the silent killer because more than 50% of the time, the first sign that you have heart disease is death from a heart attack. But yet you're walking around thinking you're healthy. So we don't judge our health on how we look and how we feel. We judge our health on how we function. And that's how I came up with the name Form and Function. Because function will dictate your form will dictate your function. If your form is off, your function will be off.
Can what they call sciatica be cured by chiropractic?
Sciatica.
Sciatica?
Oh, sciatica.
Sciatica.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yes and no is a simple answer. And what I mean by that is, technically, chiropractic doesn't cure anything, right? Because that's the medical model. The medical model is very good at coming up with cures for disease, right? And chiropractic, as well as other holistic health modalities, we say, well, technically there's no such thing as disease. think of when we think of, is there such a thing as darkness? Well, no. Darkness is the absence of light, right? If you open a door, darkness doesn't come out, light goes in. So there's no really such thing as darkness. And there's no really such thing as disease. Disease is simply the absence of the body being able to express itself the way God intended, which is health and vitality. Now, to your point of sciatica, what happens with sciatica is these bones, as we said, are supposed to be configured in a specific way. Now, typically the sacrum, it could be L5 or L4, will move at a proper position. And when it does that, the body's natural intelligence says, well, that's not good. So let's clamp down on these muscles and try to pull them back, and the muscles will start to spasm. Typically, the main muscle that we talk about is the piriformis, which connects the anterior side of the sacrum to the leg bone called the humerus. To the femur, right? And when it starts to spasm, the sciatic nerve that comes through there will be clamped down upon, and you'll get those sciatic symptoms. But the body's doing what it's supposed to do. The muscle's clamping down to try and move that sacrum back into an optimal position so you don't get that pathology of degeneration or something worse. Does that make sense?
How about what's the usual cause of back pains, and could that be solved by chiropractic?
So the cause of back pains could be many different things, but typically it comes down to nerve interference, swelling, muscle spasm, which are all symptoms of a body that's not functioning, a body that's not in proper alignment, right? So we don't want to treat the symptoms, right? Because if we just take a pill, the symptom went away. It doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. I could give you a bottle of vodka, you drink that, symptoms went
Makes
away.
you forget.
Right? Nobody says vodka's good for you.
Okay.
In fact, the next day, not only do the symptoms return, but now your body has to deal with the poisons of the alcohol you drink. And painkillers can be the same way. Very rough on the liver, can be rough on the kidneys, sometimes on the stomach as well.
What sets you apart from the other clinics that we see offering the same services?
So I can't speak on what they do. I can only speak on what I do. And we're a corrective care clinic, which, as I highlighted earlier, we don't want to base our health on how we look and how we feel. Because that's just setting us up for long-term disaster. Oftentimes, when someone comes into my clinic, they're coming in with some kind of a symptom, and that resolves very, very quickly. Once we take pressure off the nerve, once we remove the swelling and interference, the body starts to heal. And in that first stage of healing, we lose the pain, right, because the muscles relax and whatnot. But if we just stop there, right, they're going to be back in my clinic 6 months later because we didn't correct the cause of the problem. That's where we really tend to focus on, is we take x-rays so we can be sure that we don't miss anything. We can see how much degeneration is going on. We can say that with somewhat of confidence that this is going on a lot longer than your symptoms because of the configuration and deterioration of your spine. And then we can be very specific in how we correct it.
You mentioned earlier about the posture check. How do you do that? Like, do you just look at the person and you know that there's something wrong with the way they stand, or?
So we use a computerized system, right? We take two pictures, one from the front and one from the side. And we know that based on physics, we should have a center of gravity, right? The head should sit over the shoulders, which should sit over the pelvis. And when we're in this configuration, the spine will support the body. If the head, for example, migrates forward, we can see that now this is not a very good configuration to support life. In fact, these muscles now are going to have to pull to try and hold the head from falling over, and we can measure that with a computer.
Okay, so when they go to your clinic, can you walk us through, like, if there is someone interested, what is the process that you normally do?
Sure. Well, the first process is when you come into the clinic, you fill out a detailed questionnaire so we can get a good history on seeing how much trauma and your lifestyle. Right? Then from there, we take a posture exam. And then from there, we also do what we call balance scales. We put you on some balance scales, and we see, does your weight distribution equal right and left? Or are you favoring one side? Think of like a car that needs a wheel alignment. Anybody who's been driving too long in a car that needs a wheel alignment, they know that the tire is going to wear down very quickly because there's an unequal distribution of force on the road. Same thing with our bodies. If we're leaning to the right side 1 or 2 kilos, over time that right side is going to degenerate a lot faster. So this will help us identify where we are, and also help us determine how effective our care is, because we can remeasure and we can say, oh yeah, we're making improvements, we're in the right direction.
What are the common concerns that you usually take care of, or what are the common issues that people bring to you in the clinic?
Sure. So the most common things we get are things like headache, back pain, neck pain. We also get things like hormone imbalances. A lot of women come in with problem with their monthly cycle because those get thrown off.
What's that got to do with your clinic, the monthly cycle?
So if we go back to what's the master control system of the body, it's the brain and the spinal cord, right? Now the brain and the spinal cord will send messages out to the body, tell it to release hormones, right? Think of if you've ever watched a scary movie, for example, right? Killer comes out, and your heart rate starts to beat, right? Adrenaline gets released, a hormone gets released because of a mental emotional process, right? Your brain told your body release a hormone and physiological response, being excess heart rate. Same thing with fight or flight, right? If your body's in excess of stress. So all these things will play into, come into play when the body's trying to function properly.
So therefore, this is not a one-shot deal then?
No,
You have to
it's not.
go back to the clinic for how long?
So it all depends on how much damage has been done, right? It's kind of like saying, is going to the gym a one-shot deal, or is going to my dentist a one-shot deal? Unfortunately, nobody had to go to the dentist when they were back caveman days because they had a very different diet and a different lifestyle. But today, due to our modern diet, right, we have to brush our teeth on a regular basis because it's an unnatural diet. Same thing with our lifestyles. Far too often, people are sitting at a desk with their head bent forward, doing this. We see a lot more common these days of kids actually with postural problems because they're texting with their head down like this.
Especially with the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's like doing stuff at home and online.
They'll spend hours with their head in a pathological position, and then the spine remolds into the position that it's most comfortable or has been in for the longest part. And so we have to also correct our lifestyle by talking about changes so that we don't reintroduce these injuries.
How about the cost?
So the cost is, the initial exam is 3,000 pesos, right? And with that, you come in, again, you get the posture exam, you get a balance scale, you also get chiropractic adjustment with an exam as well. Then from there, we bring you back and we assess your x-rays. We send you out for x-rays, you come back and we talk about your x-rays and show you exactly where your problems are. Some you probably know about and some you won't know about, right? And then we talk about costs from there because we can package together a certain amount of sessions based on what you need to save some time.
Okay.
So we can drop the price by about 50%, for example, in some cases.
Where is your clinic located?
So we're in Apple One Tower, which is right across from Ayala Mall
here.
Business Park.
Very near.
Here.
I just have a concern because you mentioned earlier that most of those who come to you have problems with headache, and Sir Manny mentioned also back pains. Is that the common thing, and what are the common causes of these things?
So the causes can be many, right? Think of a headache, for example. I can have a headache because I drank too much last night. Or I can have a headache because I have a mineral deficiency, like a magnesium deficiency or something like that. Or I can have a headache because, as we said, if we don't have this curve in the neck and the neck is bent forward, the muscles in the back are now spasmed to try and pull the head back, and now it's causing a headache. So they're very different causes, right? That's the biggest problem I see with the medical community is they try to put everybody into a one disease, one cure, which is not really very scientific.
Okay, that's good to know, So when you look at these things, some people are scared of it. They think it's painful. Others also see that it might be, good for them, but they don't also know what to expect. So what can a patient expect when they visit your clinic and avail of your services?
So anybody who follows me on social media will know that it's very gentle. I have videos of adjusting babies as young as 8 days old. I had a baby with torticollis because coming out of the birth canal, they were tugging on the head, trying to pull the baby out, caused spasm in the muscles. The head stuck like this. We gently adjust the bones, and baby's very easy to adjust. There's no force needed. And the baby's head just melted back, right? And you can see that on my YouTube channel. So it's very gentle. We have different techniques that we use. And most people afterwards, they feel much better, right? The biggest thing I hear is, oh, I feel lighter, right? And then we always call to follow up to make sure people are doing okay. And then we always hear, oh, I had an excellent night's sleep last night, right? Pain's better, but not resolved in one adjustment. But I had a very good night's sleep. Haven't slept that good in years, right? And that's the beginning signs that the body's starting to wake up and starting to heal, because we healed when we were sleeping, right? So it's a very good sign.
There's some people who want to buy stuff like back support to help them in their posture. Is that good for them, or will that also make matters worse?
So it's good and bad. You think of the back supports almost like a crutch. Sometimes it's necessary until we can get the body functioning properly, right? Just like when you break a leg, you need some crutches until the body heals itself. So once we can get the core muscles strong enough to support the body, and once we can put the body in proper alignment so it doesn't take as much energy to sit upright, then we'd like to move away from that. Right? But if we constantly use it, the body's always going to try and be as efficient as possible. And if there's an external support system, the body's going to say, well, I guess I don't need these muscles to do that job, and they're going to get weaker, and that's not what we want.
How do you also ensure that patients are fit for your services, and especially those who have a lot of health issues?
So we always do an exam, and we send people out for x-rays so we can see things like if they have calcification in some of their arteries, which may not be a good candidate for adjustment. We talk to them about a history, see if they had maybe like scars that haven't healed right or whatnot. But for the most part, chiropractic is very safe, right? It's the largest, fastest growing holistic healthcare in the world. And one way I always say that you can tell how safe it is you look at insurance rates. Now, the insurance rate on a chiropractor for malpractice is very, very low. Insurance on a medical doctor is very, very high. Medical doctors are excellent at what they do, but when there's something goes wrong, it's a catastrophe, right? There's not much that can go wrong with the chiropractic adjustment. So the insurance companies know that, so that it's very, very low on our insurance.
How about those who are interested to book sessions, and what are your payment options?
So we have a wide variety of payment options. I never want to turn somebody away due to financial difficulties. Again, as you come in, we have to discuss what your situation is, how often you can come in, how much care you need, right? Because I can't just tell just by looking at somebody if they need one adjustment or they need 100 adjustments, right? It really comes down to how bad the body is, how much it's already broken down before we get to the problem.
What do they need to do if they want to reach out to you? Do you have a social media page or a number for them to call?
Sure. You can reach out to us on a number of ways, whether it's Instagram, Facebook. You can call our clinic directly. We're Form and Function. I think we have the information somewhere.
We'll show it later. But if you want to book a session, you can call them at 0917-670-0907 or the website www.formfunctionchiropractic.com. So please invite them to visit your clinic.
Yeah, so one thing I'd like to say is, your health is your most valuable asset. And typically we don't appreciate it until we lose it, right?
True.
Once we lose it, then we see the value in it, right? And it's a lot harder to restore somebody's health than to keep somebody healthy. We say there's usually health, we lose our health was like a death from 1,000 cuts, right? Slowly, we lose our health until one day we don't realize, but, we're taking 5-6 medications, which never respond well, we're not able to function properly, we can't play with our grandkids. So, if you really want the best life possible and you want to restore your health and vitality, the first thing you need to do is embrace that God made us perfect in His image, and the body is a self-healing, self-sustaining organism. And if we can just honor that and we can restore that intelligence, the body will respond, right? Just like a farmer planting a seed, right? It's always going to grow, right? He doesn't have to say, oh, that seed needs something special. The seed will always grow because it has an intelligence inside it. Our body's the same way.
Do you have any other questions, Sir Manny? Okay, thank you so much. Maybe I will drop by. I do need to drop by with my persistent headache and my backache. I think Sir Manny also will drop by one of these days. Thank you so much for joining us today, for letting us learn a lot of new stuff this morning. Thank you. And we'll be back after this break.